Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Bundles by The Soft Machine.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
This is gonna be an interesting one, so stay tuned, but before everything, let's hear some of my favorite bits from this album. So this is the Soft Machine's 8th studio album. Now it's not called 8th as you'd expect, but it's actually called Bundles, and this one came out in 1975. And throughout their career of the Soft Machine in the last 7 years, none of the original band members that were present on the first album are actually present on here, so this makes this band basically another incarnation, like another total incarnation of the Soft Machine. And I'm telling you this because this is one of the main critiques that a lot of people have against this album. The fact that it's not the Soft Machine because none of the original members are still there, and it's basically just another group who has taken over the label of the Soft Machine. And that is also valid for the music found on here because this album mostly is jazz rock fusion, a lot like Nucleus, which we've talked about 2 days ago, but veering towards rock more than jazz. Now, that is pretty understandable, and although it doesn't sound like the Canterbury experimental psychedelic prog that they did in the beginning, I still like this sound quite a bit. And honestly, there's a lot of bureaucracy that comes into this, and a lot of people say that no, this is not the sound that we want, this is not the Soft Machine, this is not what we were looking for, and they just decide to hate on this album because of it and don't even appreciate it for what it has. I will do the opposite and not give a damn about it and just listen to this album and appreciate the music found on it for itself. Now, if you have been following my channel for literally 2 days, you will remember that I reviewed 2 days ago the album We'll Talk About It Later by Nucleus. And in that video, I mentioned that the Soft Machine and Nucleus have a very joint history, and I said that I will elaborate about it, so here's me elaborating. So featured on here we have the pianist and saxophonist Carl Jenkins, and we also have John Marshall on the percussion and drums. Now, both of them have been present, if I'm not mistaken, on the last 2 albums, being 6th and 7th, but this album is the first one in which they really get an artistic choice to make, and they really lead this album in the style of its music. And if Nucleus made music for jazz-loving rock fans, then the Soft Machine are making music for rock-loving jazz fans. And this album specifically starts off with what I personally believe to be the best track I've ever heard from the Soft Machine discography, being Hazard Profile number 1, or part 1, depends on how you look at it, and I believe that song to be so amazing. And of course it takes the iconic riff from Song for the Bearded Lady from Nucleus's second album and utilizes it here even better. And this album, besides being my favorite and being an absolute perfection of a song, also really does do well in setting the tone for the rest of this album and the way that it's gonna handle itself. Now, you can almost even hear this song just telling people, you know what? If you don't like it, just leave. All of those people who are looking for the politics to, oh, is this the Soft Machine? Is this not the Soft Machine? All of those people, if you don't like this music and you cannot appreciate it for what it is, just go away. Don't stay. No one's making you. And the rest of the 5-parters of the Hazard profile is also pretty great. I like all the parts. To me at least, I believe it could have been 4 parts because the second part itself is a really lovely piano and guitar solo, which I think is truly magnificent. The third and fourth part act as a sort of a build up to the fifth part, which comes back to what began and is really very jazzy, very hard hitting, very dynamic. And although they're all great, only the first part to me seems perfect. And from this point onwards, we are greeted with more tracks, which although having different names, do somewhat feel like one continuous track if you don't really pay attention. It happens more on some and less on others, but honestly, I can look at the rest of this album as one continuous track. That is to say, except for the last track, which is The Floating World. Now, to me at least, this last track kind of loses the intricacy that made this album so memorable and so lovely in the first place. I think that it acts more as a filler for the rest of the album that it has with the runtime, and it features like the same, I think it's flute or oboe, I can't really remember, but it features the same rhythm going on and some slight improvisations on top of it. But honestly, for a 7-minute song that closes the album, it is quite not what you'd expect. And while every single person on here is playing as tight as fuck, I think that the best player on here, which really dawned on me at some point, is John Marshall. I did not expect to be so amazed by how he plays the drums, and I can tell you there's only a few people that have ever caused this feeling within me, and I think it's like Neil Peart maybe, and God knows who else. But I realized that John Marshall, what he's doing in the background, mostly with his drums, is completely fantastic, and that realization dawned on me just before the song called 4 Gongs, 2 Drums came up. And in that song, he basically uses 4 gongs and 2 drums to create this amazing drum solo, which is unlike anything I've ever heard because it doesn't utilize, tum-tums or the snare or any cymbals, at least, if you don't consider gongs as cymbals, and that's very, very cool. And honestly, the only criticism I have towards this song is that it's too short. It could have been longer and I would have loved it even more, but maybe he should have stopped at the peak, and maybe that's exactly what he did. But honestly, I see myself giving my firstborn for an extended version of this specific song. But I'm fangirling this too much and I better relax, and what a better way to relax if not with... Now, this cover by Reg Cartwright reminds me a lot of the painting by George Seurat, I think his name is, and I don't remember what the name of the painting. It's like an afternoon on the park. I'm just gonna show it over here on top of the cover so you know what I mean. It gives me the same vibe as that one, although they don't really look the same and don't utilize the same techniques, but it gives me the same vibe and it's really kind of cool. And when it comes to this cover, I think it's absolutely beautiful. It has this feeling of freeness, of relaxation, of wholesomeness, which I really, really like. I don't know what it has to do with the music itself, like honestly I have no idea, but I think it is so lovely and I love it for what it is. And this is one of those places where I say, the album is kind of erratic, so you should probably convey it in the cover, but honestly, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe the juxtaposition is good on here. I cannot tell you. What I can say, this is a very lovely, lovely cover. So I am so glad to say this album does not have any bad songs. Recently we've had great albums on here which had this one really bad song that I didn't like, but this album features only good songs, and for that it's getting a very, very appropriate 9 out of 10. But that's about it guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to a big one. Yes, we are going to be listening to Metropolis Part 2 Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. But that is all guys. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye guys.